Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today.
This is Keshler.
And this is Right Now, and you're listening to My Reason Why, where we explore people's journeys that led them to where they are today.
Every believer has a reason for the faith that they hold, and we would like to explore their reason why.
My name is Alania. I am Seventh-day Adventist. Just recently been kickstarting with the Lord. I'm currently in nursing school, so the stress on that, but still trusting God. Getting closer to God is not as easy as people think it is. It's dying to self every day. So, the things of the world, the music, the being single, not just being out there fornicating. I'll just put that in general. I just say fornication. Just bringing yourself closer to God. It's hard. You're gonna lose the friends. You're gonna lose the desires of your flesh. But it definitely is rewarding. Getting closer to God brought me more peace in my life, definitely.
So I know you said it brought you more peace. You remember like kind of like when you like first encountered God or your first encounter with like spirituality at all? So by that I mean like when did you first discover like religion and spirituality and who God was?
I mean, I grew up in the church, but that the more you say that you grew up in church, that kind of doesn't make a difference because people can go and grow up in church and they can go a completely different path. But my first actual experience like with God, actually like knowing him and getting closer to him was, I believe, back in 2021, when I've just been realizing more on getting closer, like the relationship with God doesn't mean just going to church and going through the motions of it all. To have a relationship with God and actually encounter God is to actually accept him and his word and actually believe his word. I had a friend, her name is Ashley. We actually had like a falling out, but came back stronger, more relationship with God. She actually encouraged me to read my Bible more consistently and every day. She started with Proverbs, and boy, was that humbling. Proverbs. Favorite book in the Bible. Favorite book in the Bible. Yes, the Gospels, but Proverbs will humble you. First experience with God was reading the Bible and actually testing to see how relevant, it sounds bad, but how relevant he was in my life. It would be different experiences. So like asking him for certain things and it actually being played out, or more recently, I can say like with the spiritual attacks. I remember, like I said, growing up in the church, going over my grandpa's house, he'd play the old music and I'm like, here we go. There was this one song like he would play, it's called Pray On, don't know, forgot who it's by. The spiritual attacks definitely emphasize the word. So pray on, or this is who the Lord is looking for. Stay on your knees, for this is where the battles are won. So spiritual attacks, where say I would literally have like the sense of discernment where I could feel that something is like wrong or like in a person or just like having a conversation, like I would feel myself outside of my flesh on something, like something is wrong, like a spiritual attack, just in general. To be specific with it, I went to Fright Night with my friends. I don't know what possessed me to really go there, but I went, came back, and I remember I woke up from a sleep paralysis dream where you can't, move or you can't speak. Your eyes are open. And I remember I woke up from that dream and my door started like rattling. And I'm like, okay, like I'm looking at my door, it's rattling, but I'm not seeing anything. So I'm on to like, hello, it stopped, came back again, and I was like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And I was like, whoa, like the spirituality thing is actually kind of crazy. So that was my extreme encounter like with God, actually like getting to like know him, actually using his name for his glory and to rebuke like spirits or anything like that. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, seems like I guess things kind of got started early for you when you're in college, right?
In college, it really
These- I guess like would you say you learned the most about God when you went away to college as opposed to when you were home, like going to church with your family?
um yes, there was a difference between going to being home and going to church, going through the motions versus like when you're away from college, no more rules, it's just you against the world, and where the actual battles of like you and your relationship like with God, like it'll be proven. So when I was at home in New York, I'm currently in nursing school in Florida. So in New York, I'll be going through the motions. It would be more of like, just follow the rules and go to church. You ain't got no option anyway to not go to church. Go to church, not really have that actual full relationship with God until I open the Bible um, in school now, where um, there's a difference of like, okay, so do you actually believe in God, or are you just going through the motions of it because your parents, grew you up in church, said this was right, so you just did it to not fit in, but you did it just in general to so like, all right, I know my parents are gonna, because I have strict religious parents, strict religious Caribbean parents. Being, away from home, it's like, okay, do I actually believe in God, or do I just believe in the God that my parents believe in and continue to go in the motion? I definitely got close to God when I was away, because that was the real test. Do you believe in God, or what? Make a decision. Today who you will serve. God said, "Don't serve me. You wanna actually accept me? You actually gonna serve me."
Um, I guess like I think here's a question because I feel like a lot of people can kind of relate to that experience. What is it like growing up in like a Christian Caribbean household? Having like Christian Caribbean parents. Like what's that like? Like how that impacted your spirituality, like how that impacted how you view God,
Um, how did that? I'm sorry.
Nobody gonna see that.
How did that impact my relationship with God? Growing up, I realized that there are different types of Caribbean parents, especially like if they're actually religious versus like, just um going off of what their parents raised them to be. Growing up with me, my personal experience was like it was you go to church, kind of don't ask any questions, and God is good all the time. All the time, God's good, and you ain't got no other choice but to believe in God. It was annoying because, like I said, going through the motions. I played track. I was in track in high school. Some of the games or some of the events I couldn't go to because they were on Saturday. Um, what else? Going over friends' houses. I didn't do that often, or much for that matter. Um, Telling them, I don't drink, don't smoke, but behind closed doors, you would have that occasional sneak of drinking or smoking or whatever your sin was that you were dealing with. And then seeing it now in a different light, you see how kids are raised, whether they were in the church or not in the church, but you see the difference now on, wow, I am so thankful for this foundation of just technically being forced to go to church. And I'm like, oh, but you do have the people where, they have the strict Caribbean parents, don't do this, don't do that, don't have your ears pierced. But my ears are pierced because when I was a baby. So my parents weren't Adventists at that.
Ethan, oh, how could you?
No.
No, I'm kidding.
And I mean, one or two times, like, I would put on my earrings because, obviously it looked nice. And then I got caught a few times. I'm like, why are you putting on? It looks nice. It really isn't that deep. But, as go into the word and have that personal relationship with God, it's like, okay, like I understand, like, why it is that deep for you and, and all of that. But I definitely see the difference now growing up with strict parents. It was hard because you want to be in the world and do what the world does. You don't see behind closed doors what it's doing to them. It just looks good. It's the picture. And then as you grow older, it's like some of these kids, you just got to pray for them. But it was hard, definitely, growing up with strict Caribbean parents. That combination is not easy at all.
Yeah, it's crazy because like it's almost as if like we live the same lives, like just a lot of sadly like a lot of like manipulation, like just to be able to quote unquote go out and have what we thought was fun back in the day. And it's just interesting, right? Because like a couple things come to mind is like how and even in that time, right, where we were still figuring things out, still trying to maybe not as into spirituality or whatever case may be into God as we were like now, or some of us are now, but it's just like even in those times, like God was still watching us. You know what I'm saying? I think about like all the dumb things, like all the like, and I don't like using. I mean, I use the word dumb a lot, but like, do I like it? No. But it was generally like the dumb things that I did or the experimental things that I did. I'm like, yo, wow, like I'm really still alive, and it's just like, and it's just so interesting because it sometimes creates this confusing kind of thing of like, wait, so kind of being raised to you have to do the right thing for God to bless you, but I've done so many wrong things, but I'm still okay. So like, do I still need to keep doing the right thing? And you get to that point of just, then let me just try some more, okay, it's just like then we anyways, but like it's just a very interesting point because like I think that is kind of like a crossroads that a lot of times we come to, especially like getting to it's even on the point where which I'm going to ask you about, which was college, right? You said, like you referred to some of the stuff as like the old way, and now you have a new relationship with Christ and stuff like that. And so that reminds me of the story of Jacob, right? And like the specific verse of what you were saying before about like kind of what you were saying before about afterwards, like when you start getting older, college, where it's just like, okay, like this is no longer my parent, like who is God to me kind of thing, right? And it kind of reminds me of Genesis 28 verse 20 when Jacob was kind of like fleeing away, kind of going through a rough time, not knowing where to kind of go after he left his parents' house. And then it says, then Jacob made this vow, if God will indeed be with me and protect me on this journey, and if he will provide for me with food and clothing, and if I return safely to my father's home, then the Lord will certainly be my God. Right. So I think it's interesting because it's kind of shows even back then, like 4,000 years ago, or whenever it was, that people were still having the dilemma, right, of Jacob being like just doing as his parents kind of told him to growing up, leaving home, and now he's confused, like, okay, well, if you protect me, then you finally be my God. You no longer be the God of my fathers, of my ancestors and stuff like that. You become my personal God. So like can you tell us a little bit about that moment, or maybe whatever that moment, that time period, whether it was in college or a case maybe where you went from that transition, like what did that look like for you? How was it under your parents, and how was it like after you started making it your own?
Like where was the transition?
Yeah. And how was that transition for you?
Ooh, Oh my gosh.
That's a loaded question, but go as in depth as you need.
Where do I even start? Because there's been so many experiences where it's like, geez, like God, that was you. There was literally no other person. Um, and it's funny because the first thing that I thought about is when back in the day you're in church and you seeing the elders or just like the older adults, they're crying, they're bawling their eyes out, they're screaming, "Thank you, Jesus, hallelujah." And it's just like, are you okay? And now it's just like, oh, okay, I got you. I promise you I won't make fun of you again.
Mm-hmm.
Where it became real, ooh, it just gives me chills just in general. I, like I said, I've been reading the Bible, and Proverbs has really been helping me. Going back to, having strict Adventist parents. As you get older, some people, not everyone, realizes that, okay, you can't blame or use your parents as a scapegoat for that. You just have to understand this is them being parents and realizing far earlier than we have that, listen, this world will kill you, like eventually kill you if you do not like trust in God or like have that relationship with God. It creates a distance when you have the strict Adventist parents and you want to ask questions or you want to know the reason for certain things and you can't know it because you're afraid of the answer, you're afraid of being shut down. So just in general, me just having a relationship with my parents, for me, it was always like, guys, a little secret is that I promise you, every time my mom especially would ask me, oh, like, what would she ask? She'd be like, oh, like, oh, do you like anybody? I remember she asked me, like, oh, like, do you like anybody? This was in high school. And I was like, yeah, like, I like this guy. When I tell you she shut this down, she was like, you should be focused on school. I said, strike one. Because there's no way you asking me to open up. I thought this was an opportunity for us to bond. And you're like, you should be focusing on school. So I'm like, I understand that. But as I got older, it's like, okay, I understand, why school is important. Guys would be a distraction, but at least teach me like, how to like someone and like, still focus on school. So just in general, that relationship with my parents, when you were saying about, it almost seems like manipulation, especially, what was it, Ephesians 6 verse something, talking about like, honor your father and your mother. Let's read a little bit further down, don't provoke them to anger, but they don't want to read that part. But I remember reading Matthew 5:44 to 48, and it was literally talking about the King James Version saying, pray for those who persecute you. I went to the New International, it was saying like, pray for those people who hurt you. And I immediately thought of my parents. And I was like, so I'm on some, okay, like, they say certain things, just the Caribbean household. It's like the first thing they do is address what's wrong with you. Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners, or anything like that. If they haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, you got so big. So I'm like, you know what? And it creates a distance. So, that in itself has brought me closer to God, that shift, actually seeing God work in my relationship with my parents. Because it would go to the extreme as, God forgive me if I'm saying anything wrong, but I'm actually like praying about it like now. Like it would be to a point where I didn't even want to tell my parents that I liked someone. I made a whole rule in my head. Not a single person will know that I'm in a relationship until a whole year. If you get invited to the wedding, that's the only way you're gonna know that, listen, that I actually have someone in my life. Or going as far as kids, like it was deep for me. Like, I didn't even want to tell my parents that I was liking someone or in a relationship with someone, or future even tell them that, obviously, because that's when you know that obviously they know you're doing the nasty. At that point, you can hide it for so long. But it would even go as far as that. And to sum it all up, it was just seeing that relationship actually blossom into something. It's sad that, you have to get older. Well, for some people, they realize that earlier than, like, later, that, your parents are seeing something in you, or seeing something that is just not compatible with God, and you need to fix that. But we're just thinking, we're young, we're dumb, we want to do this, we want to do that. So praying and actually seeing that, listen, my parents were right. And especially when it comes to nursing school, my gosh. Oh, I remember the turning point was really when I started bawling my eyes out. Because I was reading Daniel, and it was talking about, being courageous and sticking it out through the storm. And I read that and I was like, okay, by then, to be completely honest, I was on the verge of failing a class. Like, the professors were on some, like, you need to drop this class. And I was like, but I'm reading Daniel, I'm in the eye of the storm right now. I can do this with God's help, I believe. And with my mom's help, she was like, listen, I understand your determination and your drive, but do not become so stubborn to not see that, listen, you just need to let this go. I understand your faith, your belief, but you need to step back, drop the class, and, just continue to trust in God. And that right there, I was just like, wow, imagine I go away from college and I'm on some, I don't even want to talk to my parents anymore, this and this and that, and don't have that relationship with God, and they're not able to help me. They're on some, like, all right, you know what, do whatever you want to do. I'm just going to pray for you. But no, still trying to build that relationship with my parents. So I'm like, you have to be right about something. You have to, like, I know all that manipulation, I'm seeing it now, but you have to be right about something. So I was like, all right. So that's the turning point for me. Really actually knowing the God that my parents believed in, knowing him for myself, reading the word, not just you hear a sermon, look to the scripture, okay, and then you're done for the rest of the week. That's the only time you open the Bible. That's a very underestimated statement that the preachers kept on making. Yeah, that's definitely my turning point. Building that relationship with my parents, realizing what they were talking about just in the Bible in general. This is not no flesh and blood, but the principalities, all those spiritual attacks that you be feeling, this is exactly what we're talking about. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just thinking about that, I guess it's like you kind of see how, I guess you see the practical, part of like God moving in your life, because sometimes we think it's only like just spiritual and like supernatural stuff. But it's like, no, he like really generally cares about every aspect of our life. He wants to see us like flourish and see us, happy in him, in the aspects that would also help us to draw closer to him. Because I remember you saying earlier that, sometimes people have issues with, what's it called? I guess not using their parents as scapegoats. And, I can definitely understand, sometimes, growing up, there's certain things that are done and said, where, you can't help but feel a little slighted or feel a little manipulated by the way that parents may have carried themselves or acted towards you in relation to spirituality or in other aspects of your life. There is that aspect where, it can be a little difficult to look past the fact that your parents are just like you. like they're also trying to figure things out in regards to their spirituality. Like they don't have all the answers. It's just that sometimes they have issues with admitting they don't have all the answers. So also a tough understanding because like, as a kid you're just seeing someone who's like older than you and technically you think should be wiser than you in all aspects. There are definitely aspects they are definitely wiser than you, but there are still also aspects where they're still learning, and that can be a little tough to kind of like understand and comprehend as a kid, and maybe also sometimes older, because like that trauma and that hurt can kind of blind us, and sometimes we have to allow God, as like you've experienced, sometimes we have to allow God to really like help us get past that hurt and that like those experiences, so that we can like see our parents for who they are, because like, you know without that, you wouldn't have been able to have that experience with your mom where she helped you to view a more holistic and practical application of that text, rather than just trying to force your way through that class. She helped you to see like, hey, it's not just in trying to force through the class, it's also just, you may not know what will happen after dropping the class, but just trust God, he's going to bring you through. That was a great experience. Thank you.
Oh man, I think that's so well said right now. The whole, especially like the whole refusing to refusing to admit that you're wrong, right? Because it's just like I think that whole I think the whole concept of like people realizing like, oh wow, like my child knows a thing or two. I think that's like low-key more recent because like so many like cultures out there are just like it's a hierarchy of age, especially like a hierarchy of age or like a hierarchy in like intellectuality, right? The only reason for someone to possibly even possibly know more than their parents is if you have like a degree in it. You know what I'm saying? And even if, right, they could be like, "Ah, this doctor doesn't know what they're talking about." Like, bro, it's an entire doctor. But one point I did want to touch on that I should have mentioned on it is that whole like aspect of faith, right? And it's like, and I it's such an interesting and amazing like to me at least example of what faith can look like. And so many times like when talking about like nursing school and like the drop in the class or moving forward, sometimes sometimes it does take more faith to let go than to persevere, and so sometimes like we think faith is like, oh, I need to push forward no matter what, but faith means like, yeah, let that person go, let that thing go, because like whatever you're letting go, I'm saying, whether it's a soca playlist or a significant other, and you feel truly know that like God is calling you to let that go in faith, he's going to replace it with something much better. It may not be physical, it may be just a spiritual peace and understanding a relationship with him that is unexplainable. You know what I'm saying? Like, did you get a gospel playlist? Probably not, but it's probably like, oh wow, like I can finally hear and see God and in a way that I wasn't able to before, and sometimes it takes us something God is waiting for us to get to a point where he knows that we'll be able to let that thing go. And so it's just like something could serve you in the past, right? Like I think it sounds, and whatever you might serve is like something could benefit you in the past, right? In terms of like this could have been a tool that you use. So like what I'm just trying to say is whatever you have to let go doesn't always have to be a bad thing within itself. But for you, God's like, hey, this message is for you specifically, right? Like my mom used to eat chicken, and like she, saw in a dream one day that like, hey, God was telling her, like not to eat meat, and she stopped. So since then, like 20 plus years, not eating meat, not missing it. Well, I can't say not missing it, but like not eating meat and all that stuff. But like, and that's crazy because I eating, like knowing what I know about nutrition, eating meat would have a lot of like health issues that she, unfortunately like developed, out of the random, like eating meat would have made it worse. Right. So something God told her 20 plus years ago, not really seeing the effects of it until like, oh, like if I was eating meat, I would have been in a much worse situation than I was before, so that message was like for her. So it's not like she's telling me not to eat meat, but like, that whole understanding and truly being able to hear God when he speaks, that's amazing. And he can use your mom, he can use anything, he can use dreams for that. And I think like, so like thank you for sharing that, because like sometimes faith does look like hey, yeah, I guess I need to stop trying this thing that I thought was a good thing. So I know that like obviously college was school in general is like a big test of faith for us. And like, it's at that time that we kind of like, start really seeing God and like him becoming our own personal gods and stuff like that, right? Which means that we sometimes develop like a different relationship with God, right? So there's sometimes there's like the relationship I have with God is different than like my mom's relationship, right? Like mom's relationship with God is, oh, he is a maybe I should have my mom in this podcast. Anyways, my mom's relationship with God is, he's like a king and a ruler and like deserves all respect and our best, right? It's like, seeing, talking God is like talking to the president of the United States, all that stuff, right? Which is cool. But like for me, it's a little bit more close and personal than that, right? Like, like, like that's my guy, that's my God. That's like, knowing that I can freely talk to him like wherever I am, no matter what the outward appearance may look like, God is still listening to me. He still wants that. So like he's more like a friend to me than like I still respect him and all that stuff. But I guess I'm trying to say like I'm trying to wonder like who is God to you at this point in your life?
Lord is my peace.
There it is. None.
The way this man has been trying and keep pursuing me to get out of my head. I know I'd be delusional sometimes. I know. I'd be delusional sometimes. And he's on some, I'm gonna need you to trust me. I'm gonna need you to just fully trust me. He's definitely my peace. Going back again to just my relationship with my parents. If you have just Caribbean parents and they're religious, just that combination, and oh gosh, it's foreign just in general. Foreign parents, religious foreign parents. That right there will make you want to have just peace in your life.
Preach.
Two things. Either you're gonna run away from them or you're just gonna be on some other thing. Suck it up and just build that relationship with God so that you can get that peace for yourself. He's my peace, literally. I know there's like a long list of people like, oh, he's my king, friend, my salvation, my provider. This man is peace. Like I said, I'd be in my head, I'd be overthinking. That's what really be causing where I used to have panic attacks. I haven't had them in a while. So I'm like, all right, so that was you, God. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. I know I'd be stubborn sometimes, but keep doing what you're doing. He has gotten me out of so many situations, and just even in situations where I would be stubborn and he's on some like, listen, this is why I need you to trust me. Perfect example is where last year I went to Miami Carnival, had the time of my life. But the way the Lord was on some, I don't know who told you you can go, but you went and I'm still gonna be there for you. But I'm gonna need you to know that you shouldn't be here. The way I felt tormented, like I could not sleep. I literally felt like someone was watching me. I was like, listen, I don't know what this is, but God, I'm not gonna do it again. I said to God, I'm not gonna do it again, but there are like temptation forms like I really want to go, I really want to go, I really want to go. And there are friends where like, my lifestyle changed, but they're on some, they're still doing what they do. And I'm like, they're like, why? I'm like, worried. But the peace that passeth all understanding is my peace. I cannot say it enough. He is my peace. The way I've been in my head. The perfect example of him being my peace is in where I didn't know that he was my peace. And I didn't even know that I had a close enough relationship with him just to be on some like, okay, like, God's my peace. He knows what I'm going through, he's gonna bring me through the hard times. In 2019, I went to England to go visit my aunt. She was currently diagnosed again with breast cancer. It went away, but it came back. And I went to go see her, and literally the following year, she passed. But in that case that she passed, I was in New York, she was in England. And I remember it was me, my mom, my dad, in BJ's, and my grandma called and was like, "Oh, it's not looking good." And you know, it could either be days or minutes or hours or whatever. And I think it was more days. But yeah, she was like, "It's not looking good." And for some reason in my head, I was just like, "God, let your will be done." You have literally added years on her life because she already battled it. She got through it, but it came back obviously with a vengeance. You have given her extra years on her life. You didn't have to do that, but you did. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's weird to say it's on some like I was impatient, figure out, you know, is she going to be healed by it again? Or like, you know, is she going to? And when I was just like, you know what, God, your will be done. If you need her to fight through it again, let her fight through it again and, you know, bring her the peace. Bring her, not even me, not even the family, bring her the peace that she needs. Take her out of this pain any way how you see fit. The next call, she passed in my grandma's arms. So her daughter, my aunt, my mom, sister. And when I tell you I did not cry, it was weird because I didn't cry because a few minutes later, I was like, well, a few minutes before, I was like, you know what, God, let your will be done. And I was just at peace with that answer. Whatever he chose, whatever he chose. And when I tell you I was at peace, my mom was bawling, and I was trying to hug her, but I didn't cry. I was at peace. I was like, am I human? Like, this is weird. Like, how am I not crying? Like, my aunt literally just died. How is, I was like, you know what, God, from there on, I don't think I took it as serious, but the more I talk about it and the more I think about it, I'm like, wow, that text, you are literally the peace that passeth all understanding. It's crazy. Like when you see actual scriptures come to life, other than like, you know, the preachers or anybody, you know, going into the Bible saying, oh, turn to this text. Like when you see it actually happen in real life, you're like, God, you're real. Like you're actually real. Like you're actually real. So yeah, he is my peace, and just in my life with just other people to learning to continue to ask God to abide in me as he abide in me as I abide in you. Continue to surround me with your Holy Spirit, because at this point I'm literally nothing. You didn't have to create me. People don't have to worship you, but this is why I need to worship you. Doing your thing. And I was listening to a podcast, and the title was God's rejection is God's protection. And now I'm realizing that if you don't get what you want, there's a reason. And you just have to accept that. I know it's hard, but you just have to accept that. Listen, God is protecting you. He is trying to give you peace in your life. He's trying. And yes, we fall down, we get up, but he's on some, listen, just continue to be on your knees, come to me. I just want to speak to you. I don't care if you did the worst thing in the world. In the Bible, you see adultery, murder, you see cheating, you see stealing, you see every last thing in the book. But yet God still used those people. Go to God. He is not upset with you. Continue to go with him. Let him change your heart. Oh my gosh. The Lord is my peace.
Thank you so much for that. Wow. Like, thank you. Like, thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
It's not easy, you know, to kind of come to that understanding or even that kind of posture, you know, to, you know, much less, you know, in a situation such as death, but, you know, it could be in any situation to be like, you know, God, I don't know what decision you're going to make, but I just know it is going to be the best decision. So just let me have peace with it. That is a hard posture, you know. And the fact that you was able to experience that in regards to a family member dying. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like that was like one of your closest aunts, right? You know, yeah, that relationship, I understood that you, and not just you, but also Adria, Avion, and Jayla had with that aunt. You know, it was as if you were losing like a mother. You know, so to basically be like, God, I may want my family to still be here, but nonetheless, I want them to have peace in you, and I want you to do what is best for them. You know, that, yeah, no, it's like it's completely letting go. And I think that was something that, like a theme that kind of like came up earlier in this conversation. Is like, yo, letting go is not always easy, but when you really let go and rest in God, you know, it brings you peace, true, genuine peace that passes all understanding. So, yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like there's a lot of people who probably went through similar situations, you know, even if they didn't find peace right away, but, you know, they were able to see it eventually. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that faith to let go, man, is it's I think it's harder because it's just like harder than any other kind of faith, you know, the what to let go of what. And I think what makes it a little easier is love, right? Like loving God. You know, it's just like, okay, God, I love you enough to let this go. You know, it doesn't mean it's easy. It's just a little bit more acceptable, right? Like to love your aunt enough to be like, God, to whatever you think is best for her, not what I want. Because obviously I want her to keep on going, right? You already know what I want, but it's not about me. It's that selfless kind of love. That's like, you know what? It doesn't matter what I go through. It doesn't matter what my experience is. I know that God's got me because he loves me. He's not gonna take away something. He's not a vengeful person. He's not a lot of times, especially growing up in like the Caribbean estate home, it's kind of like, oh, see, like this happened because you blank, blank, blank. You know what I'm saying? Like for some reason, like whatever is happening is a result of no. It's like God's not gonna just punish you just to punish you. He doesn't even want to punish you. The Bible literally says it doesn't please me to. God says in the Bible, it doesn't please me to punish you. I forgot where it was. One of the major prophets literally said, it doesn't please me. Like I don't like doing it. It pleases him to show mercy, to show grace. So it's just like if you're going through something, you're just like, okay, God, I love you enough to know that you have the best in mind for me, that you love me. I love you because you love me, and I love you because you're not just doing it just for fun, right? And I love the next person to know that, like, okay, hey, if this is what they need to be whole, to be at peace, to be better, then you got to give them that sometimes, right? It means not being friends with that person. It means, you know, like obviously you're very, very tough experience. And so, but it's, yeah, none of it is easy. And I think, you know, those are the times where we're tempted to, I guess those are times, I'm not trying to talk too much, but I guess like those times like where sometimes we're tempted to like kind of let go, to kind of be like, well, this is what serving God is looking like. It's just loss, right? Like, is there really love there, right? Because it's just like, yeah, and so yeah, I think you know, I continue to thank God for his sustainability, for his sovereignty, for his all knowingness, to be like, okay, trust me, I know what you need. You may not know what you need, but I know what you need. You know.
Yeah. I guess like here's a question. Was there ever a situation or a time that kind of shook that, I guess, that view of God you had? So like ever a time or situation that may have been in your life or experience where you were like, I don't know if he's my piece. Tough question. You
It is a
Jeopardy
tough question.
music. Like,
It definitely goes back to my relationship with my parents. specifically my dad, because I know it is different raising a daughter versus raising a son. You can kind of be, rough and like, be stern and, mean what you say what you mean. But going back to, just things that they would say, and you're like, I know you didn't mean it that way, but it still hurts. And just figuring out that voice to be like, that actually hurt me, and not being shut or having in my head on some, even if you speak up, it's still not gonna be fixed. Because that was always going through my head. Like, even if I wanted to ask a question, it's not gonna turn out how I want. I'm gonna be even more hurt. Like, if I address it, because that's just them, that's just how they grew up. And it's just like, no, it needs to be addressed, and I'm hurt. You need to know that I'm hurt. You need to know that you can't say or do, or you can't say or just do anything. The amount of years, not even months, not even weeks, not even days, but the amount of years I had to pray for my relationship personally with my dad. Because it's like, bro, like, I'm gonna need you to like get out of this traditional like Caribbean parent acting. Like, I'm gonna need you to know that, your kids are getting older, and I'm gonna need to see some results. Like, that's where I was like, God, are you really my peace for me to really have to be playing tug of war with my dad sometimes, or even with my mom sometimes? Like, what is going on? These are the parents, or these are the people that you have brought to teach me to not be in this world, to be in this world, but not of the world. And the closest people to me who are trying to teach me are the ones that are hurting me. So are you really my peace? Because I've been praying for years, bro, years, for a close relationship with them, where I could not obviously say everything. I'm not about to tell you that I've been drinking, I went to parties, I went to carnival. I ain't telling you all of that. Like, I'm not trying to, make you stress out. I mean, they would call me at 2 a.m. on something like, "Where are you?" I'm out partying. Do you even know that? Just I'm outside getting food. I'm getting food. I'm gonna be right back on campus. I'm gonna get food. Boop, boop, boop. Like, come on, like, come on now. But just for that right there, just praying for years, and people don't understand sometimes the weight when we have desires of our heart, and maybe we're not ready for those desires to come through, or maybe God just needs us to practice waiting on a blessing. People really don't understand that waiting period. I have been single since I was 16, and I'm 25 now. And I'm like, Lord, I feel like I'm a good enough person, and you ain't send nobody my way. What's happening? What's the problem? What do I need to grow in? Let me know so I can adjust myself. But I've been realizing also the blessing of being single, because you really do realize a lot when you're single, and you can realize a lot when you're in a relationship. But just that tug of war with specifically my dad, just building that relationship, getting out of those traditional ways, saying or doing anything like, I'm the parent, forgetting about, don't provoke your child to anger, whatever, all of that. But I'm on some like, God, like, you can't tell me that your people that you have sent to protect me and provide for me are the same people who are literally just causing me stress. And if you even say, oh, I'm stressed, what are you stressed about? You have a house, you don't have to worry about bills. That's exactly why I'm not saying anything. And it's literally that deep. So that's the point where I'm like, God, are you really my peace? Because am I being stubborn? Are they being stubborn? Like, there's no way you can be the God of peace and I'm literally being stressed out in my own home. And even if I try to address it, I feel like it won't even change. Or now, praying for the change, praying for years for the change, still not seeing it, and then now seeing it. You're on some like, so what was the problem? Let me know. Yeah. Back to, Matthew 5:44 to 48. Like I was saying, pray for those who persecute you. When prayer is power. Prayer is power. But yeah, that's where a point where I'm like, God, are you really the God of peace? Because I've been stressing for years. So what's going on? But yeah.
Yeah, no, that'll test you, man. That will test you. I know, like, I don't know about everyone else, but I know that God sent me, or like God gave me my mom to so I can continue to trust in him. So my faith can be continually built. So yeah, I mean, like, parents can sometimes be like, okay, this may sound bad, right? But like, obviously I love my mom, love my parents, but like, I think sometimes parents don't realize that they're the stumbling block, like that what they're doing is what's not quite literally like making you lose your salvation or anything like that, but sometimes it does affect like my willingness to want to pray, or like how I pray, right? Or like, growing up for a while, like learning to pray in a certain way that, you have to say this and that, and kind of like getting to a point where I don't even know how to say it, but it's like getting to where it's like the things that like you hear, then you start hearing different things and other things are for other people, and you're like, wait, I thought this was the only way to do it. Then when you realize there are other ways, it almost feels like, well, my parents lied to me, right? But kind of by going back to what Reno was saying, it's just like, oh no, what I forgot what we were saying before, but like that, like, or like, yeah, our parents are also learning as we go. You know what I'm saying? Like if we think about ourselves, and I think about myself in high school, I was not the same Christian I am now. You know what I'm saying? I would have been burned at the stake at some point, because of how conservative I was, So like, um, but yeah, so that same kind of growth is like, and especially like a lot of our parents also like had us young, right? So like, I can imagine me 3 years ago trying to raise a child. You know what I'm saying? Like that's trauma, like it's a walking ball of trauma. Um,
For
it's
real.
it's it's interesting how God does call us to be the patient ones, right? To do, as you said, to pray for our parents. He's like, hey, I'm giving you a certain amount of wisdom, a certain amount of discernment, right? So like, and it's tough battle. He promised to be there with us through everything. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna use you to be the catalyst to help our parents see him in a different light, to improve our parents' relationship with him, right? And it feels tough for us because it's like, yo, like, why can't you just see it blah blah a different way? It's just like when they literally can't. And so it's just like, so that God being your peace and all that, it's just like he gave you the peace that you needed to do the work that he needed you to do, which was possibly like in your parents and your family and different aspects of your life, and so it's just like anything else may have been a distraction. And so yeah, I guess I was just saying that because I don't know, it's just something I kind of like heard from like what you were saying. Yeah, like and although my experience is not the exact same as yours, obviously, but yeah, like I think there are a lot of people going through something similar, and you being so willing to kind of be open with that, and about how God's worked on you through that and with that and stuff like that, and like how he truly cares about your interpersonal relationship. That's amazing, and I think that's truly like a truly an amazing like testimony in itself. So like again, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, because like sometimes we kind of don't maybe not always understand, or maybe misunderstand the role a parent plays, especially in the spiritual development. Because yes, although we don't want to put the blame on parents and we don't want to use them as scapegoats, like at some point every individual will have their own like opportunity or their own like I guess experience with God to get to know God for themselves. There's still the aspect that a person's gonna, like, depending on if you're growing up in like a Christian household or Christian culture, 9 times out of 10, your parent is going to be the person you learn God's character from, whether indirectly or directly. Most times, like, if your parent is teaching you about God, anything your parent does, you're going to be like, this must be what God is like. Like, this must be who God is trying to, like, show himself to be to me. If you have, sometimes if you have strict parents, you're going to view a strict God. If you have like very, lax liberal parents, you're going to probably have a view of like a lax liberal God. And I feel like that's natural to happen. And I think that's why there is, like, should be an emphasis on how we represent God to, like, not just our children but people around us. I just think about the gospels, especially the life of, like, just looking at the life of Jesus through them. You see his most harshest responses and harshest critiques has always been to the Pharisees. And when you think about it, it's because they were people who, quote unquote, represented God to the masses. So people are looking at them and they're like, if this is who God is, why would I want to follow him? And and yeah, we not want to say, like, put all the onus or scapegoating or the blame on people around us who misrepresent God, but they do also still have a responsibility in the sense of, being careful and mindful of your actions and thoughts. Not even in the sense of, like, let's say you just misrepresented God wrong. Don't let it go like fixed, or don't let it go, like, I guess, left alone. Like, be understanding enough to be like, all right, I misrepresented God wrong here. Let me go talk to this person and have this conversation with them to help them understand that that's not God, that's just me. And maybe if we had conversations like that more, and also maybe if parents had conversations like that more, it would also go a long way for the children as well as everyone, because then we are able to see that aspect of, we're all growing. We may be at different ages, different stages, but we're all still growing and trying to, like, figure things out, trying to learn about God for ourselves. Because just look at our parents, like, lives, or like our parents themselves. The parent you knew when you was like 11 years old is very different from the parent you know now. Like, I'm pretty sure there's things that our parents do that we're like, I didn't know you'd do that. What are you talking about? Like, what's this side of you? It's too understanding, it's too considerate, it's too caring. I'm not used to this. Go back to whatever you were doing before. Yeah, no, I feel like that's something we kind of understand, because, like, yeah, I mean, personally, I look at myself right now, just being like, what, 27, about to be turned 28. I'm really am just like someone who's older, just trying to figure life out. I'm still a kid in my heart, in my mind. I'm like, all this time I was a kid. I was like, I can't wait to be an adult. They lied to me. They didn't tell me that, I'm still gonna be a kid, just trying to see what's life about. Like, how do I just get through this thing? So yeah, I just, that's something that doesn't come easy to understand, especially when you're going through certain experiences, and that's understandably so. But it's like, I feel like, especially in your situation, Lanya, God is able to help us to see this and help us to understand, like, at times, that's not me, that's just them trying to figure life out just like you. Offer them some grace the same way I've offered it to you. But yeah, no, this kind of goes into our last question. So, taking all this into consideration, what would be some, I guess, practical advice you can provide to people who may be going through similar situations of trying to find, like, their reason why they believe in God the way they do?
That's definitely difficult, just overall to say, because I myself am learning that everybody has different relationships with God. And just like you said, the way the way our parents view God is more than likely how we will perceive God too, especially like, if we obviously we grew up with either one or both of our parents, or just the guardian that we have. How they view God is how they're going to teach us, mainly to view God too. I'm gonna go with the first thing I thought of in my head because I don't want to start thinking. First thing I would say is to definitely stick it out. There is a reward. It's very hard to hear God's answer as just to wait. But probably even more difficult to know that we're not even prepared for that blessing to come. I said before, the last time I've been in a relationship, actual like title wise, versus situationships, just dealing with guys just in general, is when I was 16. And I'm literally just waiting. Who knows? I probably could have been in a relationship by now, but because of my stubborn ways, not actually going to God and on some like, God, I actually do want a relationship versus doing it for the clout, just thinking of only the good times. I can't wait to hold hands, can't wait for my wedding, can't wait to have kids, but there are in between things that God will literally have to put us through. So all that pain, all that suffering, the physical, emotional, spiritual damage that you feel, even the physical that you feel, there is a reward in the end. So you literally just have to stick it out, know your relationship with God, continue to build that, actually read your word. That's a very underestimated thing that was always said in church. Don't just take, what I say, referring to the preacher. Don't just say what I said. Actually go to the word and read it for yourself. Translate it for yourself before you even read. Ask God. That's what I do. Ask God to have the word be hidden in your heart and actually know it for yourself and understand it for yourself, because we have all different interpretations when it comes to reading the Bible. So definitely stick it out. There are periods of feeling alone. There are periods of like highs and then lows. You're trying to figure out where God is. I know for me personally, I always thought that I would just have that tingly feeling on some like, oh, God is with me. And then other times I'm like, are you actually with me? Like, I know you said, like, in your word that you're actually going to be with me wherever I go. And then, in the back of your head, because I would party, I would drink, fornicate, all of that. And it's like, were you actually with me? Because I know you didn't like seeing what I was doing, but were you actually with me? So you just have to know that, God is always with you. Continue to read your word. Stick it out. There is a reward. There is that peace, or however you need God to come through in your life to be your provider. People are going to come out of your life, in and out of your life. You could have even like the physical provision or the spiritual provision, just to be that strong enough to like listen, be like, God, this was you. I'm gonna continue to trust in you. I believe the words of the song that pray on, like, this is who the Lord is looking for. So he's looking for you. He's constantly looking for you. You just have to literally continue to go to him and know 100% that, well, not 100%, but just know in general that you will fall. Don't focus so much on, all right, I have to be good. I have to follow all the commandments, because that's what I would struggle with. I have to follow the commandments. I didn't lie today. I made sure I went to church today. I made sure, I was driving the right speed limit. Once you do that checklist, he's on some like, listen, it will come eventually. When you ask God to help him make you desire things that he actually wants to, it will help so much. If you keep thinking about it, you're gonna fall. You're eventually going to fall. If you keep on having it in your mind, you're gonna fall. You're gonna feel bad about it. You're not gonna want to go to God. And now he's on some like, no, like, just keep coming to me. Keep coming to me. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. The everyday thing to die to self, not want to just have it your own way. I know you can't see it, but it's there. If you know that whatever the desires you have is aligned with God too, or just to ask him, like, make sure the desires that I want are the desires that you want for my life too. Just just keep going to him. Keep going to him. Don't give up.